The wind howled across the empty plains of Texas that night, carrying with it the dust, the scent of burnt wood, and a strange sadness that clung to the air. The moon hung pale and heavy over the desolate railway line, silvering the iron rails that stretched endlessly into the darkness. A lone cry echoed faintly, a sound so soft it could have been mistaken for the whisper of the wind. But it wasn't. It was a baby, wrapped in a torn grey blanket, barely big enough to shield her from the cold. The infant lay near the tracks, trembling. Beside her was a crumpled note pinned to the blanket with a rusty hairpin. Only one word scribbled on it in shaky handwriting. Unwanted. The child's tiny fists clenched at the air, her lips quivering as the train's distant whistle screamed from miles away. The sound of the coming engine trembled through the rails. Death was coming fast, and she didn't even know it. Far across the field, under the wide starlit sky, a wagon rattled along the dirt road, drawn by two chestnut horses and driven by a man with a shadowed face. His hat was pulled low, his coat dusted with the wear of 1,000 miles. His name was Colt Maverick, known across 3 counties as the Millionaire Cowboy. He wasn't just rich, he was different. A man who built empires with calloused hands. Oil wells, cattle ranches, land stretching beyond sight. He owned half of Maverick County, yet none of it filled the emptiness he carried. He'd buried his wife 2 years ago after an accident that left him broken, not just in heart but in spirit. Since that day, he'd lived alone in his vast ranch house, talking only to the wind and his horses. That night he wasn't supposed to be on that road. Fate had its way of twisting roots when it wanted souls to collide. As Colt neared the tracks, his horse slowed, ears twitching. "What's wrong, Duke?" he muttered. The animal whinnied softly, uneasy. Then he heard it, the faint cry cutting through the night. Colt froze. That ain't the wind. He climbed down, boots crunching on the gravel, his lantern swinging in his hand. The sound came again, desperate trembling. Following it, he stumbled upon the small bundle beside the track. Just as the train's distant roar began to thunder closer, he stopped dead, eyes widening. Dear Lord! Without another thought, he dropped the lantern and ran. His boots pounded the ground as the rails began to shake. The train's light split the night open, growing larger by the second. Colt reached the child, scooped her into his arms, and leapt back just as the engine screamed past, the rush of air almost knocking him off his feet. He fell backward, clutching the baby to his chest, breathing hard. For a long moment, he just lay there, the roar fading into the distance. Then he looked down at the tiny face pressed against his coat, eyes half open, lips trembling. Easy there, little one. You're safe now. He saw the note pinned to the blanket, the single word unwanted. Colt's jaw tightened. He crumpled the paper in his fist and looked back down the track, empty, silent. Whoever left her here was long gone. He rose slowly, tucking the child close. Not tonight, he murmured. No one's unwanted tonight. The ride back to Maverick Ranch was long and silent. The stars glimmered coldly above, and the baby's soft breaths were the only sound in the wagon. Colt held her as if she were made of glass, careful, gentle, something he hadn't been in a long time. When he reached the ranch, the lamps in the house were dark. His housekeeper, Martha Jo, an older woman with kind eyes, stirred awake when she heard the door. "Mr. Colt, that you? What on earth?" Her voice stopped when she saw him holding the child. "Good Lord, where did you—" "Found her on the railroad tracks," Colt said quietly. "Someone left her there to die." Martha covered her mouth in horror. "Oh, that poor angel." Colt laid the baby on the table, still wrapped in the blanket. "She's cold. Get some milk warmed, quick." Martha hurried off, muttering prayers under her breath. Colt stood there watching the little one, his heart twisting in a way he hadn't felt in years. When Martha returned, she handed him a small bottle. "You want me to feed her?" He shook his head. "No, I got it." He sat by the fire, holding the bottle carefully to the baby's lips. She sucked weakly at first, then stronger, her eyes fluttering open, soft grey, like a storm cloud before rain. For a second she looked right at him, and something shifted inside Colt. It wasn't just pity. It wasn't just compassion. It was connection. Hours passed. The baby finally slept in the warmth of the blanket. Colt watched her, the flickering light painting his face in gold and shadow. "Who'd do that?" he muttered. "Who'd call a life unwanted?" Martha sighed. "World's full of folks who don't see blessings till they're gone, Mr. Colt." He didn't answer. His mind was somewhere far away, remembering another baby. His own daughter, Emma, who died in that same accident that took his wife. He hadn't spoken her name in years. But tonight he whispered it again. "Emma!" The child stirred at the sound, her hand gripping his finger tight. His throat burned. "You ain't her," he said softly. "But maybe God sent you to fix what's broken in me." He stayed by her crib all night, refusing to sleep. Morning came with the sun spilling over the fields, lighting the endless stretch of Colt's ranch. The baby was awake, smiling faintly, her tiny hands reaching toward the light. "Looks like she's taken to you," Martha said, smiling from the doorway. Colt chuckled. "She's got spirit. Gonna need a name." Martha grinned. "You already got one in mind, don't you?" Colt nodded. "Hope." "Hope?" He looked out toward the horizon, the golden light washing over the pastures. "Because that's what she is. A second chance." But peace never lasts long on the plains. By noon, a rider appeared at the gate, a stranger, dusty from travel, carrying an envelope sealed in wax. He handed it to Colt without a word, then turned his horse and left. Colt tore it open. Inside was a folded piece of paper. His eyes widened as he read the first line. "The child you found isn't what she seems. Don't keep her. They will come for her." No signature, no name. Just a strange symbol scrawled at the bottom, a serpent coiled around a sun. Colt's fingers tightened around the note. He looked back at the baby sleeping in Martha's arms. "She's just a child," he whispered. "Who'd come after a baby?" The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. Somewhere in the distance thunder rolled, and from the shadow of the hill, unseen, a pair of eyes watched the ranch through a spyglass, dark, cold, patient. That night, Colt couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He sat by the fire again, the baby's crib beside him. Every creak of wood made him glance up. Every gust of wind made his hand inch toward the revolver hanging by his chair. "Who are you, little one?" he murmured. "And why do I feel like I just stepped into something big?" Hope gurgled softly, smiling up at him as if she knew something he didn't. Colt smiled weakly. "Well, whoever's coming. They'll have to go through me first." The fire crackled. Outside, the storm broke, lightning flashing over the fields. The wind screamed across the plains, and the first drops of rain began to fall. But far beyond the storm, on the old dirt road leading into Maverick County, 4 dark riders appeared, moving silently, their coats flapping like wings, their leader carrying the same serpent sun emblem branded into his glove. They were coming for her. The rain didn't stop for 2 straight days. It beat against the ranch house windows like a drum, washing the dust from the land, but leaving the air heavy, as if the storm carried secrets. Colt Maverick hadn't slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the serpent emblem burned into his mind, the warning letter's words echoing again and again. "The child you found isn't what she seems. Don't keep her. They will come for her." He'd faced bandits, land thieves, and even oil barons. But this felt different. It felt personal. Martha Jo tried to keep the mood light, humming soft hymns as she fed Little Hope. The baby had grown livelier in just 2 days, her cheeks rosier, her laugh like a melody that filled the empty rooms. Colt watched her from across the table, his hat low over his eyes. "You sure she's doing fine?" "She's more than fine," Martha said with a smile. "She's a miracle. Maybe you don't see it yet, but she's bringing life back into this house." He looked at the baby again, and despite his worry, a faint smile tugged at his lips. "Yeah, maybe she is." But then he caught movement through the window, a flicker of shadow near the stables. His smile vanished. He rose, slowly, his chair scraping the floor. "Stay here," he said, "and keep her close." Outside, the rain came down in sheets. Colt's boots sank into the mud as he made his way to the stables, his hand on the revolver at his hip. He moved like a man who'd learned to trust silence, and the silence was too deep tonight. When he reached the barn door, it was ajar. Inside, the horses snorted nervously, their hooves clattering. Colt stepped in, lantern in hand. "Easy, boys. It's just me." But then, from the far stall, a figure moved, tall, wrapped in a slick black coat, his hat dripping rain. The stranger turned slowly, and for a second, Colt caught the gleam of something metallic on his glove. The serpent and sun symbol. "Who are you?" Colt demanded, gun raised. The man didn't flinch. "The one who warned you." Colt's grip tightened. "Then talk fast." The man's voice was low and smooth. "That child, she's part of something you don't understand. You think you found her by chance?" He shook his head. "There are people looking for her. Dangerous people. If they find her here, they'll burn this ranch to the ground." "Why?" Colt asked. The stranger hesitated. "Because she's the last of them." "The last of who?" Before the man could answer, lightning flashed, followed by a sharp crack, not thunder this time. A gunshot. The stranger staggered, clutching his chest. Another shot rang out from the dark beyond the barn. Colt dove for cover, firing back blindly into the rain. The stranger fell against the hay bales, blood blooming across his coat. "Who's out there?" Colt shouted. No answer, only the rain. He rushed to the wounded man, lifting his head. "Stay with me, damn it!" The man's eyes were fading. He pressed something into Colt's hand, a small silver locket, etched with the same serpent and sun symbol. "Protect the child," he gasped. "Her blood. It's the key." Then he was gone. Colt sat there in the barn, soaked and breathless, staring at the locket glowing faintly in his palm. He didn't understand, but he didn't need to. He only knew one thing. Whoever wanted that baby, they'd have to go through him first. By dawn, the storm had broken. The sky stretched wide and gray, but the air was tense, too still. Colt buried the stranger on the edge of the property, marking the grave with a wooden cross. He said no prayer, just stood silent, hat in hand. When he came back inside, Martha was pacing. "What happened last night, Colt?" "I heard shots." "Trouble came sniffing around," he said. "And it ain't done yet." She clutched the baby tighter. We should get the sheriff." Colt shook his head. "No, this ain't sheriff business. Whoever's behind this, they're deeper than the law." He opened his palm, showing her the locket. Martha leaned closer. "That symbol. I've seen it before." "You have?" She nodded slowly. "Years ago when I worked in Dallas for the Silverstone family, the oil tycoons, their logo was just like that. Word was they were into something strange, secretive, experiments, symbols, rituals, things no one talked about out loud." Colt frowned. "You think the child's connected to them?" "I don't know," Martha whispered. "But if she is, you better be careful, Colt Maverick." That night the riders came. It started with the dogs barking, a sharp, terrified sound that cut through the wind. Then the lights went out. The ranch was plunged into darkness. Colt grabbed his rifle and ran for the nursery. Martha stood in the corner clutching Hope, eyes wide. "They're here!" "Get down!" Colt barked. The front door exploded inward. Men in dark coats pouring in, their faces hidden, guns drawn. Colt fired first, dropping the lead man. "Get back!" he shouted, firing again. Bullets shattered glass, splintered wood. Martha screamed. Colt moved like a ghost between shadows, picking off the intruders one by one. But there were too many. One of them broke through the side door, lunging for Martha. She turned, shielding the baby. The man's hand reached out, grabbing the blanket, and Colt fired, the bullet slamming him against the wall. The last of the attackers fell. Silence, smoke, the smell of gunpowder filled the room. Colt stood breathing hard, rifle trembling in his grip. Martha was crying softly, still clutching Hope. "It's over! It's over!" But Colt knew it wasn't. He knelt beside one of the fallen men and tore off his mask. The face beneath was cold, young, no older than 20. But burned into the man's neck was the serpent and sun brand. Colt looked down at the locket again, then at the baby, who stared up at him, wide-eyed, innocent, unaware of the storm that surrounded her. The next morning, Colt saddled his horse. "We're leaving," he told Martha. "They'll come back, and next time they won't miss." "Where will you go?" she asked. "North, into the canyons. I know a place they won't find us." He packed supplies, wrapped the baby tight, and rode out before sunrise, the land still damp from the storm. The air smelled of renewal, but danger still hung heavy behind them. For days, Colt rode through the wild plains, sleeping under the stars, keeping hope close. The baby never cried much. She only stared at him with those grey eyes, calm and knowing. Sometimes Colt felt like she understood. One night, as they camped under a lone oak, he took out the locket. It had a small clasp. He pried it open carefully. Inside was a photograph, faded, old. It showed a woman in a white dress holding a child, and standing beside her, Colt froze. It was him, younger, smiling, dressed in his old cavalry uniform. The photo had been taken years ago, before he ever became the Millionaire Cowboy. Before the accident, before his life fell apart. He dropped the locket, heart pounding. How in God's name? The baby gurgled softly, reaching toward the photo. Who are you? He whispered again, his voice shaking. What are you? By morning, a dust trail appeared on the horizon. Riders. He could see them through the scope. Black coats, serpent brands glinting. They'd found him again. He turned to the baby. Hold on, Hope, he said, his jaw set. We ain't running anymore. He spurred his horse toward the canyon, a labyrinth of red rock and shadows. As they entered, gunfire echoed behind him. Bullets whistled past, striking stone. Colt rode hard, weaving between the cliffs. Finally, he reached a narrow ledge overlooking the ravine. There was nowhere else to go. He dismounted, clutching Hope tight. The riders appeared at the mouth of the canyon, their leader dismounting. A tall man with silver eyes and the same serpent brand on his hand. Give us the child, Colt Maverick, the man called. She doesn't belong to you. Colt stood firm. She belongs to no one, and she sure as hell ain't yours. The leader smirked. You don't know what she is, do you? That child was part of a project. Bloodlines engineered for power. Her mother fled before we could finish the ritual. She left her on those tracks to keep her hidden. But fate brought her to you, the last man who'd ever believe in miracles. Colt's eyes burned. You call murder and greed a miracle? The man raised his gun. Step aside. Colt took one step forward. You'll have to shoot through me. A long silence. Then the leader fired. The bullet tore through Colt's shoulder, spinning him back, but he didn't fall. He raised his rifle and shot once, dead center. The leader crumpled. The rest fled into the canyon shadows, their echo fading with the wind. Colt fell to his knees, blood staining the dirt, holding the baby close. It's over, he whispered. You're safe now, Hope. You're safe. The wind howled softly through the canyon, like the sigh of a soul finally freed. Weeks later, back at Maverick Ranch, the grass had grown greener than before. The house that once felt haunted was now alive again. Martha rocked the baby on the porch while Colt, arm still bandaged, watched the sunset. You ever think maybe she's meant to be here? Martha said. He smiled faintly. I stopped questioning it. Maybe she's my punishment. Or maybe she's my redemption. The baby laughed, reaching toward him. Colt took her into his arms, looking into those grey eyes again, not with confusion now, but peace. No one's unwanted, he said softly. Not anymore. The wind carried his words across the plains, whispering through the fields, a promise, a prayer, a truth reborn.